Listen up, I got a story to tell about a journey of faith that I propelled. From the ashes of doubt I began to rise, discovering Christianity, a new light in my eyes.
Throughout history, brutal dictators have seized power, leaving trails of suffering in their wake. Two of the most infamous examples are Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. As Christians, how do we reconcile these monstrous leaders with the Bible's instruction to respect authority? And why would a loving God seemingly allow such evil men to rise? On Discovering Christianity, let's count down 10 points as we uncover this theological dilemma. Number 10. Setting the stage. Hitler's Nazi regime orchestrated the Holocaust, a genocide claiming millions of lives. Mussolini's fascist Italy plunged the nation into war and oppression. These horrific atrocities leave us questioning how a just and loving God could permit such evil leaders. Number 9. The biblical mandate, a closer look. Romans 13 verses 1-2 instructs believers, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established." Whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. Does this imply that God handpicked Hitler and Mussolini, placing them in power? This challenges us deeply. Theologians grapple with this apparent contradiction. Could God ordain authority while still allowing for wicked leaders, particularly when we consider the consequences of their actions? Number 8. God's sovereignty and human agency. Scripture affirms God's ultimate sovereignty over all creation. Yet, the Bible also reveals that humans have free will, tragically misused by many throughout history. How do we reconcile God's power with the reality of human choices leading to profound evil? Some theologians emphasize the consequences of sin and the brokenness of the world. Others point to instances throughout Scripture where even sinful people are used by God for His purposes, albeit in ways we may not fully understand. Number 7. The complexity of free will. While God ultimately holds authority, He has gifted humans with free will, the ability to choose between good and evil. This freedom, tragically and repeatedly misused, is the root cause of much suffering in the world. Yet, without free will, we would be mere puppets, and true love would be impossible. We see this play out from Genesis onward. Adam and Eve's disobedience brought sin and its consequences into the world. Leaders throughout history have made disastrous choices. This doesn't diminish God's sovereignty, but highlights the complexity of the human condition within the framework of His plan. Number 6. Accountability to God. Though human leaders may wield great power and escape earthly justice, the Bible is clear that ultimate judgment rests with God. Romans 14 verse 12 states, "So then, each of us will give an account of ourselves to God." This truth brings a degree of sobering hope. Even when justice fails in this life, God will ultimately set things right. The timing of God's justice can seem agonizingly slow from a human perspective, yet the Bible assures us that it will come. Number 5. When submission ends. The Bible doesn't advocate blind obedience. There are times when God's law takes precedence over any earthly ruler's commands. Consider Daniel, who defied a royal decree forbidding prayer, Daniel 6. The early Christians also refused to worship Rome's emperors, choosing to obey God instead, even facing brutal persecution. Acts 5 verse 29 declares, "We must obey God rather than men." This principle guides Christians when leaders enact laws blatantly violating God's moral commands. Number 4. Confronting injustice. When leaders violate God's moral law, Christians may be called to engage in resistance. This encompasses a spectrum from peaceful protest, as advocated by leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., to acts of civil disobedience, drawing inspiration from those who defied oppressive regimes throughout history. The prophets of the Old Testament boldly spoke out against unjust rulers, and Jesus Himself overturned the tables of corrupt merchants in the temple, showing us that righteous anger has its place. Number 3. The problem of suffering. Why does a loving God allow such extreme evil and the horrific pain it causes? The existence of leaders like Hitler and Mussolini forces us to confront the age-old question of why suffering and injustice plague a world supposedly under the care of a good God. The Bible doesn't shy away from this struggle. The book of Job grapples with profound suffering. Habakkuk laments the violence he sees, crying out to God in his confusion. Theologians have wrestled with this problem of evil for centuries. Some emphasize the consequences of free will and the broken world we live in. Others acknowledge the mystery of God's ways, trusting even when we don't understand. Number 2. Wrestling in the mystery. We may never fully grasp why God allows wicked rulers to rise and the tragedies that unfurl. Faith often requires us to wrestle with mysteries beyond our understanding. Yet, this doesn't lead to despair, but urges us to seek answers while acknowledging that some things might only be revealed in eternity. While the Bible offers guidance, it doesn't provide a tidy, easy answer for every complex situation. This necessitates humility, recognizing the limits of our human understanding. Number 1. God's justice, distant or delayed. In the face of monstrous leaders, justice can seem absent. Does this mean God isn't just, or does ultimate accountability lie beyond this life? The Bible emphasizes a day of reckoning when all will stand before God. But the seeming delay of justice, particularly for victims of horrific regimes, can severely test our faith. The Book of Revelation offers vivid imagery of this future judgment. While we might not see full justice on earth, the Bible points towards ultimate justice before God. This leaves us with a multitude of complex questions, perhaps with few easy answers. Keep exploring this dilemma, friends. Discovering Christianity means embracing both the profound beauty and the perplexing challenges of faith. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you again soon.
In my eyes, yeah, searching for answers, I was lost in the haze. But then I stumbled upon the ancient ways.